Sit in a comfortable meditation posture and close the eyes. Allow the awareness to go deep to the silence within. Connect with that silence. You are the silent witness. As the silent witness, listen to the words of the Yoga Vashishta today. Book 5, Chapter 37, continuing with verse 31. The soul, like a gourd fruit, is not injured by showers of rain falling on the outer body, which resembles its hard crust. Consciousness, like a lamp flame, is not to be held fast by a rope. So this ego of mine, which transcends everything, is not to be tied down by anything to the earth, nor does it bear any relation to the objects of senses, or my mental desires, or anything existing or not in existence in this world. Who has the power to grasp emptiness or confine the mind? You may cut the body into 1,000 pieces, but you cannot divide the invisible and the indivisible empty spirit rising in me. A pot may be broken or bored or removed from its place, but there is no loss sustained by the air that it contains. In the same way, the body may be destroyed, but there is no damage done to the unconnected soul. The mind is as false a name as that of a demon, Pisacha. The destruction of the gross body does not injure the immaterial soul. What is the mind but the perceptive power of my desires and gross pleasures and pains? I had such a perceiving mind before, but now I have found my rest in quiescence. I find the mind is another thing beside myself because it perceives and partakes of the enjoyments of life and is exposed to the dangers that take the body. There is another one in me which beholds the actions of the other as a theatric act and witnesses the exposure of the body to peril as its last sad catastrophe. The mind is the wicked spirit caught in ignorance, but the pure spirit has nothing to suffer. I feel neither the wish to continue worldly enjoyments nor a desire to forsake them altogether. Let what come to pass on me, and whatever may happen to pass away from me. I have neither the expectation of pleasures nor an aversion to suffering pain. Let pleasure or pain take or forsake me as it may without my being concerned or taking heed of either, because I know fluctuating desires are constantly rising and setting in the sphere of my mind. Let these desires depart from me, for I have nothing to do with them, nor have they any concern with me. Alas, how all this time ignorance, my greatest enemy, has misled me to these desires. It is by favor of Vishnu and by virtue of my pure Vaishnava faith rising in me of itself that my ignorance is now wholly dispelled from me, and the knowledge of the true one is revealed to me. My knowledge of truth has now driven away egoism from my mind, just as they drive a spirit from its hiding place in the hollow of a tree. I am now purified by admonition, mantras of divine knowledge. The tree of my body is now set free from egoism, which sat like a demon yaksha in it. My body has become like a sacred tree, blooming with heavenly flowers and freed from the evils of ignorance, poverty, and vain wishes, which previously infested it. Loaded with the treasure of sacred knowledge. I find myself sitting here as one supremely rich, knowing all that is to be known. I see sights that are invisible to others. Now I have that in which nothing can be wanting, and in which there is no want. It is by my good fortune that I am freed from all evils and the venomous serpents of worldly cares. My chill and frigid ignorance is melted down by the light of knowledge. The hot mirage of my desires is now quenched and cooled by my quietude. I see the clear sky on all sides without any mist or dust. I rest under the cooling shade of the tranquility of my soul. It is by my glorification of God, my thanksgiving to Vishnu, my holy rites, and my divine knowledge and quietism that I have obtained by grace of my God a spacious room and elevated position in spirituality. I have that God in my spirit. I have seen and known him in his spiritual form. He is beyond my own ego, and I remember him always in this manner. I remember Vishnu as the Great Spirit. The eternal Brahman in his nature. While my selfish ego is confined like a snake in the holes of my organic frame, which is wholly the land of death. It is entangled in the bushes of its pricking desires, resembling prickly karanja ferns, amidst the tumults of raging passions and 1,000 other disturbances of this world. It is placed amidst the conflagration of disasters. Encircled by the flame of smart pain at all times. It is subject to continued ups and downs of fortune and repeated rising and fallings in its journey in this world. It has its repeated births and death owing to its indeterminable desires. Thus, I am always deceived by this great enemy, my own egoism. The animal soul is powerless at night, as if caught in the clutches of a demon in the forest. So while I am in this state of meditation, I feel deprived of its power and action. By grace of Vishnu, the light of my understanding is roused. I see my God by means of this light, and I lose sight of my demonic egoism. The sight of demonic egoism dwells in the cavity of my mind, disappears from my view. In the same way as the shadow of darkness flies from the light of a lamp, and as the shade of night is dispersed by daylight. After a lighted lamp is extinguished, you do not know where its flame has fled. In the same way, when we see God before us, we do not know where our lordly egoism is hidden. My rich egoism lies at the approach of reason, just like a heavily loaded robber lies before the advance of daylight. Our false egoism vanishes like a demon at the rising of the true ego of God. My egoism being gone, I am set at ease like a tree, freed from a poisonous snake, rankling in its hollow cavity. When I am awakened to my spiritual light, I am at rest in my unconsciousness in this world. I have escaped from the hand of my captor and gained my permanent ascendancy over others. I have my internal equanimity, and I have allayed the mirage of my thirst after vain glory. I have bathed in the cold bath of rainwater, and I am pacified like a rock after the cooling of the conflagration. I am cleansed of my egoism by my knowledge of the true meaning of the term. What is ignorance, and what are our pains and affliction? What are our evil desires, and what are our diseases and dangers? All these, with the ideas of heaven and liberation, together with the hope of heaven and the fear of hell, are only false conceptions proceeding from our egoism or selfishness. As a picture is drawn on a canvas and not in empty air, so our thoughts depend upon our selfish principle and its want. As a clear linen receives the yellow color of saffron, so the pure soul receives the image of God. Egoism weakens the soul with the irritable passions of the heart, like the inborn color of a dirty cloth makes a good dye defective. Purity of the inner soul is like the clarity of the autumn sky. It is devoid of the cloudiness of egoism and the drizzling drops of desires. I bow down to you, O my innermost soul. inmost that is a stream of bliss to me, with pure, clear waters amidst and without the dirt of egoism about you. I hail you, O my soul, that is an ocean of joy to me, not infested by the sharks of sensual desires, and undisturbed by the undersea fire of the latent mind. I prostrate myself before you, O my living soul, that is a mountain of delight to me, without the hovering clouds of egoistic passions, or the wild fires of gross desires and desired. I bow to you, O soul in me, that is the heavenly lake Manasa to me. With blooming lotuses of delight, and without the waves or cares and anxieties. I greet you, my internal spirit, floating in the shape of a swan on the lake of the mind of every individual, and residing in the cavity of the lotus crown chakra. With your outstretched wings of consciousness and standing, all hail to you, O full and perfect spirit. That is the individual and immortal soul, which in your several parts of the mind and senses is like the full moon containing all its digits in its entire self. Obeisance to the sun of my consciousness. Is always in its ascendancy and dispels the darkness of my heart. My consciousness pervades everywhere, yet it is invisible or dimly seen by me. I bow to my intellectual light, which is an oilless and wickless lamp of benign brightness that burns in full blaze within me. It is the enlightener of nature and quite still in its nature. Whatever my mind is heated by Kamadeva's fire, I cool it by the coolness of my cold and detached intellectual coolness. Just as they temper red-hot iron with a cold, hard hammer. I am gaining my victory over things by killing my egoism by the great ego, and by making my senses and mind destroy themselves. I bow to you, O all-subduing faith that crushes our ignorant doubt by your wisdom. that dispels unrealities by your knowledge of the reality, and that removes our cravings by your contentedness. I exist solely as the transparent spirit by killing my mind by the great mind, by removing my egoism by the soul ego, and by driving the unrealities by the true reality. Now let us continue, established in the silent witness. Performing Trimana Sanyama on the esoteric Mahamantra, balancing all karmic traces that have arisen during today's reading. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Jai Gurudev.